Hey everyone, and welcome back for another deep dive with us. Today we're going to be looking at something pretty fascinating, the intersection of art, introspection, and Zen philosophy, all through just one painting, actually.
It's called Stop, Look, Listen, and it's by this Houston artist, Bob Camblin.
Okay, Bob Camblin, stop, look, listen.
Yeah.
Got it. And how are we going to, unpack all of this?
Well, we've got a few things to help us out. There's a YouTube video analysis someone did, also some excerpts from an art book, and Stop, Look, Listen is actually featured in this book.
Oh, wow, really?
Yeah, and then we've even got the foreword to that book, which talks about, like the bigger picture of art history and how it connects to philosophy and stuff.
So we've got kind of a multi-layered approach here. That's really cool. Sounds like we're going to be uncovering some hidden meanings, maybe exploring some Zen principles along the way.
Definitely.
Maybe even do a little introspection ourselves. Who knows?
It's all possible with this one.
Okay, so I'm already intrigued. What's the most compelling question this painting poses for you, like right off the bat, before we even, really dive in?
Hmm. For me, it's how this one image, this painting can be like a visual puzzle box. All these symbols, cryptic messages, you almost feel like it's daring you to interpret them.
I like that. A puzzle box.
Yeah.
So before we try to crack the code, let's just get a clear picture of what we're actually looking at here. You've seen the painting. What are the key elements that really jump out?
Well, the first thing you notice is this bearded man's face. And the art book says it's probably a self-portrait,
Okay.
but his gaze, it's intense, almost like he's looking right through you.
Yeah, the sources all describe his expression as pensive,
Yeah.
but I don't know, there's almost a haunted quality to it too, don't you think? Like something's weighing on him.
Yeah.
And the style of the painting itself, it's not exactly what you'd call peaceful and serene.
Oh, definitely not. The art book describes it as like this whirlwind of swirling washes and lines, lots of earth tones, blacks, these kind of muted yellows.
And then you've got these hidden female figures.
Yeah, it's almost unsettling how they just kind of keep emerging from those brushstrokes.
Okay, yeah, that's actually what I wanted to ask you about next. These mysterious figures lurking in the background.
Yeah.
What do you make of them? The YouTube video kind of throws out a few different ideas of muses, maybe their memories, maybe even emotions given form. But then the art book analysis goes in a completely different direction.
Right. They suggest maybe the figures could represent like different personalities or even outside influences that are kind of shaping the artist's inner world.
Hmm.
So not just sources of inspiration, but maybe also those pressures and expectations that we get from external sources. What stands out to you about them?
Honestly, it's how they're almost merging with the central figure's beard, like they're part of him, but also separate. Visually, it's just so powerful. I don't know, it makes me think of that whole age-old question.
Mhm.
Are we shaped more by our internal world or by the forces around us?
And that question actually feeds directly into the tension we see in the painting between the central figure's gaze, which is so pensive, almost meditative, and this chaotic energy of the forms all around him.
Yeah, like a visual representation of that internal battle between introspection and just being overwhelmed by your own thoughts and emotions.
It's a struggle that artists have grappled with for centuries. This painting really echoes like the rawness and the emotional intensity of self-portraits by artists like Van Gogh and Kossoff. They weren't afraid to expose those internal battles on canvas.
And speaking of exposing things, we can't forget about that handwritten text woven into the painting.
Oh, yeah.
It's like he's screaming at himself, isn't it? I mean,
Uh-huh.
shut up, Camblin, or you will drown in it. It's not exactly a subtle message.
It definitely grabs your attention. And the YouTube video actually suggests that he could be drowning in silence, or maybe thought, or
Wow.
even just the sheer weight of perception.
Wow, drowning in perception that sends shivers down my spine.
It's a powerful image.
It's like he's saying that if we don't find a way to quiet our minds, we'll be consumed by that constant influx of information and stimuli.
Yeah, it's this stark warning against becoming a prisoner of your own thoughts. And it's incredibly relevant today with all the digital noise and distraction we're constantly bombarded with.
And that's actually where I think the connection to Zen philosophy starts to get really, really interesting.
Oh, absolutely. The title itself, Stop, Listen, it's practically a Zen koan in itself.
Totally.
Yeah.
But before we go there, there's another layer to this painting I want to peel back. It's the way Camblin uses text
Oh, yeah.
and how that connects to other artists throughout history.
Yeah, you're right. This isn't just some random scribbling. It's very intentional.
Exactly.
And the art book actually points out the connection to artists like Basquiat and Twombly. They also incorporated text into their work, kind of blurring the lines between visual and written language.
Hmm. And it really makes you think, what is Camblin's choice of words, stops, listen, iComics, what do those actually add to the overall message of the piece?
It's almost like he's forcing us to engage not just visually, but intellectually with the work.
Yeah.
It becomes multisensory.
And maybe that's that first step towards understanding those Zen principles that are kind of embedded in this whole thing.
Could be.
So let's dive into that next, shall we?
Yeah, so like we were saying, that title, Stop, Look, Listen, it's like a roadmap to mindfulness,
Mhm.
which is like, as you know, one of the cornerstones of Zen philosophy.
It's almost too perfect, right? Like it's staring us right in the face.
Right.
But what does it actually mean to stop, look, and listen, through that Zen lens?
Well, in Zen, it's all about training yourself to just be fully present in each moment,
Okay,
to observe your thoughts and your feelings, but without judgment.
right.
It's that idea of simply being rather than constantly doing.
So it's not just about quieting the mind, but like becoming an observer of our own internal world.
Exactly. And if we look at the painting with this in mind, those swirling forms surrounding that central figure, they could represent that constant stream of thoughts that we all experience, you know? Think about a time when your mind was just racing.
Oh, yeah.
Can you almost visualize those thoughts as like swirling forms?
Oh, absolutely. Like a storm brewing inside my head.
Right. But then you have that central figure and he's not getting swept away in all that chaos. He's observing.
Right.
And that's the looking part of the equation, that act of witnessing your thoughts without getting caught up in them. Zen emphasizes this idea of looking and being looked at,
Okay.
cultivating a sense of self-awareness where you recognize that you are not your thoughts.
Which brings us back to that unsettling message. Shut up, Camblin, or you will drown in it.
Right.
It's like he's warning himself about the dangers of overthinking,
Yeah.
of letting those swirling thoughts consume him.
And if you're drowning in your own thoughts, the Zen approach would be to find that stillness, that space of emptiness where clarity can kind of emerge.
Okay, so help me out here. Emptiness in a Zen context.
Yeah.
It's not about being completely blank-minded, is it?
Not at all. It's more about creating space for something new to arise.
Okay.
Think of it like clearing your desk before you start a new project. You're
Okay.
not getting rid of everything, but you're making space for fresh ideas, new insights.
Ah, that makes so much more sense. So in the context of this painting, maybe Camblin is struggling to find that emptiness.
Could be.
He's surrounded by all these thoughts and influences, and that shut up Camblin message, it's him trying to create that space for inspiration to flow.
And this idea of emptiness as a source of creativity, it's something that's explored so beautifully in the Tao Te Ching. There's a passage about how true inspiration comes not from force, but from stillness,
Yeah.
from allowing things to just unfold naturally.
I love that. It's like the creative process itself is a dance between those swirling thoughts, the chaotic energy, and then the stillness of emptiness.
It's a delicate balance for sure. Now, for you personally, when you're trying to tap into your own creative flow, what helps you find that balance? Do you need silence, solitude, or are you someone who thrives in like a more stimulating environment?
For me, I need to carve out some serious quiet time,
Yeah.
Put the phone away, shut off notifications, and just let my mind wander.
Hmm.
I've even experimented with meditation, which actually ties back to, some of those Zen principles we've been talking about.
It's fascinating how these ancient practices can be so relevant to our modern lives,
Totally.
especially when it comes to creativity.
Yeah.
And if we think about art history as a whole, we can actually see how artists have been exploring these themes of inner experience for centuries.
The forward to our art book touches on this, right?
Sure.
It talks about how different art movements reflected those shifts in how artists perceived and portrayed reality.
Exactly. Realism was all about capturing the external world objectively.
Hmm.
But then Impressionism came along and it became more about the subjective experience, light and color. And then Expressionism emerged and the focus shifted even further inward to emotions, to the artist's inner turmoil.
It's like each movement was getting closer and closer to expressing that intangible realm of human experience.
And Stop, Look, Listen feels like a continuation of that exploration. It's not just a depiction of reality, but like an invitation to dive into the artist's inner world.
Right.
And in doing so, to confront our own internal landscape.
It's like Camblin is setting up a mirror for us, reflecting back those questions about who we are, how we perceive the world, and how we find meaning amidst the chaos.
And the act of contemplating those questions, engaging in that silent dialogue with the artwork, that's where the true power of this painting lies.
This has been such a rich conversation. We've gone from deciphering symbolism to exploring the depths of Zen philosophy. But I'm curious, what does all this mean for someone who's maybe not an art enthusiast, who's never really thought about Zen principles before? What's the takeaway here for them?
That's a great question, and one that I think we should explore further as we move into the final part of our deep dive. We'll try to bring it all home, connect those dots to your life, and hopefully leave you with some lingering thoughts to ponder.
Okay, so we're back. And I think it's time to bring it all home.
Yeah.
We've covered so much in this deep dive into Stop, Look, Listen. Like we talked about hidden symbols, and we went deep into Zen philosophy.
Mm-hmm.
But now I'm really curious to hear how you tie all of this together. For someone listening who maybe hasn't spent a lot of time thinking about art or even Eastern philosophy, what's like the key takeaway you hope they walk away with?
I think the biggest takeaway, and it's something that keeps coming back throughout this whole painting, is just the importance of cultivating mindful awareness. You know,
Yeah.
in today's world, it's so easy to get caught up in that constant, like, barrage of information and stimulation. We're
Yeah.
always doing, always consuming, but stop. Look,
Listen,
it urges us to kind of do the opposite, to pause, to just be present in the moment.
like hit the reset button on our brains,
Yeah.
right? And that idea of stopping, it's not about becoming passive. It's about intentionally creating space for something different to emerge.
Right. And it's about reclaiming our attention, which is maybe our most valuable resource these days.
Oh, for sure.
And once we've stopped, then we can truly look. And I don't mean just with our eyes, but with like our full awareness. Remember that the Zen concept of looking and being looked at?
Yeah.
It's about developing that deep introspective gaze, both inward and outward.
I see. And that's where the listening comes in.
Exactly.
Once we've quieted that mental chatter, we can actually start to hear those more subtle messages,
Yeah.
from our own intuition, from the world around us, maybe even from art itself.
Precisely. It's about tuning into those whispers of wisdom that are always there,
Mm,
but we often miss because we're so caught up in the noise.
yeah, we're drowning it out.
Exactly. And this brings us back to that core tension that we see playing out in Stop, Look, Listen.
Yeah.
Balance between thought and action, between introspection and actually engaging with the world.
Camblin just captures that so brilliantly.
Mm-hmm.
Like you have that swirling chaos of thoughts, but also that central figure's steady gaze. It's like he's saying, yes, the world is messy and chaotic, but we don't have to get swept away by it.
Right. And we can find that stillness within ourselves, even amidst all the chaos. And that stillness, that emptiness, remember we talked about that.
Yeah.
It's not a void, it's a space of potential, a source of creativity and insight.
And that's maybe the most empowering message of all,
Get it?
that we actually have the capacity to choose how we respond to the world, even when it feels completely overwhelming.
Yeah. So as we wrap up this deep dive, I want to leave you with a little challenge.
Okay, I'm game.
Think about a piece of art that really resonates with you. It could be a painting, a sculpture, a song, a film, anything that speaks to your soul.
Okay.
Now look at it or listen to it with those Zen principles in mind. What do you notice that maybe you haven't noticed before? What messages are being conveyed, both like explicitly and implicitly?
And how does that artwork reflect your own inner world?
Yeah, your values, your fears, your aspirations.
It's amazing what we can discover when we approach art with that sense of, mindful awareness.
It is. And if you're curious to see Stop, Look, Listen for yourself, we'll be sure to include a link to Bob Camblin's website in the show notes, along with links to all those sources we used for this deep dive.
Awesome. Well, thanks for joining us on this journey of art and introspection.
Of course.
We'll be back soon with another deep dive. So until then, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep listening.